Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm going to show you how I made a couple of small improvements to this. The final result, I think, looks considerably better, certainly more to my taste. I removed almost all of the rust. There's still a few little spots of rust here and there, but nothing significant, and in my opinion just gives it a little character. Some of the improvements, first of all, I cleaned up the switch, and this is the original switch that came with it. Mounted it up here, and it's kind of odd that it has the off in the up position. And there's the on position. Also made a couple of things for it. I made this little ball lever arm here instead of a nut for that. So that's just to kind of dress it up a little bit. This structure back here was, previously it was welded on. So I made something a little bit more robust. I cut off the weld and made this thing a little bit more robust. I decided, why not, let's make a hand crank for this thing. So I made a device where I can, and this is an old crank I had laying around. I've always wondered what I was going to do with that crank, and now I know. So this crank, I can now hand crank this should I want to. Anyway, that's just for fun. That comes right off. No big deal. One of the, I think probably the major improvement I've made is on the back. So let me turn it around and show you. Well, I made a nice little wooden base. I had a scrap of oak out in the shed, so I just put that on. Made a nice little base for it. So the main thing I've done here, I think, to improve the utility of the thing is to make this little window here. And I used the previously existing little bolt hole, and I got a little metal plate I made. I'll tell you what, I'll put the crank on it and I can crank it and show it to you. Okay, here it is in operation. I'm not sure if you can see that going up and down. I'll give you a close-up of that here in a second. Anyway, the little window makes it so much easier to tell what you're doing. And I've taken the motor off and the belt off and everything, so we can see what's going on here. Now I have that is a very large stroke. Okay, let me see if I can show you how this works now with a better view. So now what I'm going to do is, this is on a, I think you can tell that's a pretty large stroke. That's probably, it's probably 3 or 4 inches anyway. Which for this shaper is a large stroke. Alright, I loosen this. And now let's move this so that it's closer in. Tighten it down. You just have to hold this to hold the pull gear still while you're tightening it. Now look at that. That thing is almost not moving at all. I got a stroke of perhaps not even ½ an inch. Not a usable stroke, really. You couldn't do anything with that. But by the same token, you have a lot of flexibility with this thing. One of the tricks is that when you do that, you have to make sure that you're not going to run into anything. Because it is possible to set this up. I'm not sure if I can do it. Let's see if I can go far enough to really mess it up. If you push it all the way, tighten it down, I think it'll jam on me. He had a limiting pin in there. Yeah, see, it's jamming now. It's banging into the back end of the housing here. So that is not a usable position, not a usable setting for it. So you want to, and that's, gee, I don't know what that stroke would be, 6 inches or something, way too big. So you'd set it in between there somewhere. I'm not sure where, maybe there. That stroke is probably 2 inches or so. So anyway, that's how you would adjust all of that. He had a limiting pin in there, but the limiting pin was too limiting. So I reinstalled it, tried it, and I didn't like the way it was just too limited. It would only give me a stroke 2 inches to 1.5 inches, something like that. So what I did, I just removed that, which was the way it was when I got it. And now I've got a lot of flexibility, but I also you have to be more careful when you set it up, so you don't go too far with it. You also want to make sure that you don't run the ram into. I've not seen that happen, but I understand that can happen with some shapers. Anyway, the main thing is it'll jam up inside here, get all clobbered up. Okay, now I've taken this beautifully machined, I think it's just a guard plate, took that off to show you more about how this works. First of all, I've disconnected this, and I wanted to show you that this thing, when you go up and down with it, it actually changes the angles here a little bit. And you could, in principle, you could change where the feed occurs a little bit there. And if you ever were to need to change the feed rate or change any of that configuration, you have good control of that by positioning this. This thing goes in there, and you have a lot of flexibility with regard to exactly how you put it in. You put it in like that or like that. Got lots of different positions there. And then when you tighten this arm up, that'll determine whether you're feeding when you're on the in-stroke or the outstroke of the ram. So you can control all of that by, and you'd have to for, if you're using, this is for a greater amount of feed, coarser feed, and this is for a finer feed, a little bit lesser amount of feed there. So you have control over that. You just have to take the plate off and fuss with it a little bit to do that. I hope you've enjoyed following along with my process on this little GK shaper. Charming little piece of antique craftsmanship of the highest caliber. Thank you for watching.